I'm afraid all my stuff's a bit. Okay. We are on the lunch break on the third day of questioning of the undercover police officer Carlo Soracchi, platform anti-fascist group. I'm joined with Claire Doyle from the Socialist Party, who's been following Carlo Soracchi's evidence of the last couple of days. What have you made of it?
His evidence, pathetic. I mean, he looks pathetic. He sounds pathetic. He is pathetic. And I think it's a disgrace that he could ever have called himself a revolutionary socialist. He wasn't, obviously, but we thought he was at one time. And he joined the militant in Hackney, where I live. And so I would go to meetings with him, and he came with us to Genoa for the big anti-G8 demonstration in 2001. And he was sort of looking after us in a way, that we didn't quite know. But we were camping down by the sea. We were going on the mass demonstrations. We were there protesting about Carlo Leone being killed the day before, and urging the trade unions to take action and so on. And we didn't know that at that time he was also liaising with the police, which we heard about a bit yesterday from one of the people who's here, not from Carlo, that he was liaising with the police about preparations for attacking those demonstrators at the school. I mean, luckily, because he was with us, I think he must have suggested that they didn't attack us. But we were vulnerable, just sleeping out in the open. They could have come for us. They didn't. So I wanted to see if any of that would be coming up here. I mean, do you want me just to carry on?
He's made a great deal about the fact that he sort of suggested he was like the representative in Italy for the Socialist Party, we heard a great deal of it as he's tried to sort of explain away how he got these all expenses paid romantic weekends away in Venice and Bologna with the women he was deceiving into sexual relationships. He tries to claim that, in fact, these trips were part of his legend, that he was going out and meeting with Italian activists as a representative of the Socialist Party. He talks about being, kind of meeting as part of the Committee for Workers International, that he, as an Italian speaker, was some sort of rep.
Well, and he was helpful to us because he was an Italian speaker, but he certainly wasn't our rep in Italy, and he didn't go to those meetings on behalf of, there weren't any meetings.
Well, quite,
actually, that he made up. And Venice is a nice place to visit, but we didn't have any contacts or groups of people in Venice. We had some contacts in Bologna and Florence, and I've been racking my brains for a time when he came. He traveled with Peter Taff and myself, and Peter was doing a meeting. We had a public meeting, and we didn't have a translator, so we asked Carlo to translate, and he found it very difficult, not because he doesn't know English and he doesn't know Italian, but he couldn't get his head around the political ideas, because really that's not what he was around for. So that was quite amusing, that he's obviously inflated his importance to us. We did quite a lot of fundraising in Britain, in London. We did Italian meals and things, and he would bring over barrels of wine from his father, I think, in Italy, and help. And he would cook, very good cook, as he said yesterday. Actually, I heard him say that. He's a very good cook, and we did the fundraising, and we thought he was on board.
It seems like he really, we've seen a lot, particularly with the reports we've seen over the last hour and a half or so of him giving evidence. There's a lot of stuff that essentially he put himself in the middle of like social settings and reported back what he heard in those settings into his reports. It seems very, a lot of it just seems to be pub talk.
I've noticed he has admitted that he was in the pub quite a bit, and he did drink quite a bit. I'm not surprised if someone with that kind of who has to have a dual personality has some problems, and it's just a pity that he's inflicted these problems on some very nice women that I've seen here. I haven't heard them giving any kind of. I've heard him talking about it yesterday, but I also heard him talking today about the Antifa organization, that some of our comrades, some of the members of our party were involved in that. I mean, we don't agree with the idea of violence on the street achieving anything. You know, we want to achieve a change in society through, actually through the trade unions, as he mentioned, and through the parties, but by building a party of the working class that can give a lead. So the idea of violence against fascists is not our cup of tea. But it was interesting that they quoted some of our material, more or less saying that. I think.
I mean, it was quite interesting actually. I mean, he talked that we saw some reports about him reporting on the plans for the Socialist Party to take part in elections, and it was put to him, you know, this is taking part in the democratic process. Did this give you any sort of pause for thought that perhaps what is the policing value in reporting on political parties taking part in elections? And he said, look, I was deployed against the left wing, and I reported anything that the left wing was doing. And it didn't matter if you were a member of parliament, if you were standing for election, if it was involvement in trade union activity, he was reporting on it.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty harmless. We were trying, we were using the democratic structures. And I was wondering as well what use he was to the police, really, what he picked up, because he wouldn't have found any illegal action being adopted or even talked about in our organisation.
I mean, we saw a real pattern, wasn't it? I mean, we would see sometimes multiple reports from before an event where he would talk about there being large numbers, about there being plans to physically attack BNP members, about how that there was going to be serious violence at the event, and then we would actually get to he's asked where did he get this information from. He said, oh, it was in the pub or in a social gathering before the event. Then we would see reports from the event. None of these things would happen at all, and it was kind of put to him as like, well, isn't this the sign that perhaps your intelligence wasn't up to much? And he's like, well, perhaps it was something he said yesterday was perhaps it was that my intelligence was so good that it prevented any of these things from happening. Which is just laughable, really.
It's just that these plots and things weren't happening, so he didn't have anything to supply to the police. That's what I think is quite funny. And I mean, it must be a hell of a lot of money gone into that operation. Money. He talked about the money that he was claiming, sort of falsely himself yesterday. I heard that. But it's cost them a lot of money to spy on an organization that wasn't trying to do anything illegal. And we believe in we believe in the building of the mass movement that will transform society, get rid of this rotten system, which seems to get rotten, more and more rotten by the day, as we're seeing now. I won't go into current affairs.
I mean, fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was interesting when we saw, like, though he was reporting on literally anything and everything that he could that members of the Socialist Party were involved with, that he came in contact with. When it came to his own, like, kind of the fact he was moving around, he ended the relationship. He moved out from Don McLean, the woman he was deceiving, the second woman he deceived into a sexual relationship, and then he started living with various Socialist Party activists, Joe Batty, Paul Heron. Yeah.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. Which another mention of Paul Heron, one of the solicitors at the inquiry, which is, it's always kind of like amusing to actually hear him being mentioned. I don't think he's very comfortable with it. But anyway, it became very clear that the way in which he was acting. I mean, it's, as much as anything else, it's very sloppy tradecraft. That he said, oh, him being a sofa surfer was seen as a positive by his managers, that it would allowed him to be in the middle with various activists. And then he said, well, was reporting on Paul Heron, for example, was that part of it? Oh no, Paul Heron was politically inactive at the time. So there wasn't really anything to report about him about, but it was convenient for me to live with him. And you wonder what on earth he's doing.
Well, it probably was. He needed somewhere to live, and it obviously wasn't going too well with his female partners. And I think Paul wouldn't have been the only sensible member of the Socialist Party that he stayed with, lodged with. I mean, you mentioned some other people from other constituencies.
Yeah, Steve Headley, who he stayed with for a while.
But he's not part of our.
No, but I mean, interesting with the thing with Steve Headley. I mean, Steve Headley had two daughters who lived with him, and it was put to when we've seen from previous undercover officers that when people were living in properties where there was other family members living, it was considered this shouldn't be the case. This is collateral intrusion. and according to not necessarily involved with anything, are getting spied on unnecessarily. And Steve Headley's daughters would very much qualify as that. He said, there was no concern whatsoever from his managers about this, which is very different from what we've heard from other undercover officers about their choice of where to live and what was blocked and what was prevented from places to live. We got on, and I have to be quite careful because there are restriction orders in place, but we did get on to the third woman he deceived into a sexual relationship, who he continues to be with. He went on to marry and is still with. And this was someone he confessed that he was an undercover officer to. Now he claims
very quickly,
yeah, with
almost as soon as he.
Yeah, certainly within the first year. And he claims that the Detective Chief Inspector Flood gave him permission to confess that he was undercover officer to this woman, and that he told them, I'm not going to swear her to secrecy. And he said that the operational concerns of operational security about the unit didn't prevent him from getting permission to do that. Now, Flood has given a statement to the inquiry saying that that wasn't the case at all. He was never given permission for this. So it really calls into question so much of what we've heard from Soracchi about what his managers gave him permission to do, which they're denying. I mean, we really can't believe anything he says.
Yes, I think he's practiced making up quite a lot of things. And I was surprised that if he had been given permission to tell all to this friend very soon after he met her, given how long he had to hide everything from another one I heard yesterday.
Yes.
And what was the other question about whether he's telling lies.
Yeah.
Well, I only saw him for the first time yesterday. I'd seen a bit on the media, but he's learnt to act. I mean, he just seemed like a jolly fellow when he was working with us on the campaigns and so on, and interested, but not particularly erudite politically. Didn't get it. But now he seems like someone who is thinking very hard before he comes out with his very pathetic answers, and saying "sir" all the time. It's getting me sick.
Yeah,
it's not like a revolutionary in my.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, when you compare and contrast that character that you met when he was deployed undercover and the man you see before you in court, I mean, how different are they?
Well, I would say chalk and cheese, but it's because he's a lot older and I'm a lot older, so maybe we all change as we age. I was just disappointed when I was discussing with somebody this morning that he's actually not going to really get punished for it, whatever he says, and however genuine all the evidence against him, which I'm sure it is, he's not really going to suffer for it. So he can just act the part and be the centre of attention for as long as anybody who's doing these proceedings wants.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I mean, the best we can hope is that he squirms under questioning. I mean, this is as much as he'll be held to account is these questions he's getting over these couple of days. I mean, it's incredibly limited, and I mean, it shows the limitations of British justice, which I think is.
So he won't go to prison.
No.
And he won't be fined.
No. No, there'll be no. I mean, in fact, any crimes that he confesses to in the inquiry and the questioning, he won't be able to be charged over as part of the nature of the inquiry. He's the opportunity to confess to crimes without that leaving himself open to prosecution for that, in the hope that it means that he's more truthful. I mean, I don't think that's been the case. We have had a couple of comments. Someone saying, "Oh, it's kind of blurry." Yeah, I do apologise. The internet connection here is poor, and I'm having to broadcast this via my phone, which isn't the best. Another comment from someone from the campaign opposing police surveillance. Let me just bring that up on screen, which says, the idea they just okayed him telling his partner and without her having to keep it secret is utterly risible. Yet again, he says his managers are lying. Keeping the fact of the unit secret was its top priority. They put up with all manner of outrageous behaviour and fiddles from officers, e.g. Stephen Scott, James Thompson, in order to keep it secret. Absolutely. I mean, this is entirely true. You know, we see a pattern of it's the security of the unit above anything else, about any other sort of operational security. He will be be questioned later on for the rest of the day. He's due to come back tomorrow. We don't know if he will or not. Is there anything you'd like him to be questioned about? Carlo Soracchi. Yeah, he's due for one more day of questions, in theory.
And does he have a choice as to whether he comes?
No, he has no choice. No, I mean, it'll be the choice really of of Barr, who's asking the questions, whether he's finished his questions or not.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
is there any topics you'd like to see him questioned on?
I think he's being cross-examined on a lot of things, but my question, it's not really to him, but it's how much did he understand really what we were as a party and what were we trying to do? Because he went to quite a few of our meetings, and I think he did. But I don't think that's dangerous for us. I don't think it's dangerous for us. I think the worst thing is what happened with the women, and as far as I know, he didn't get anybody of ours into trouble with the police. No, but I just wish he could get punished.
yeah, quite. Yeah. I think that is. I mean, that is the overwhelming takeaway for so many people who've kind of observed the inquiry. It's incredibly frustrating that it seemed these men are obviously guilty of some terrible wrongdoing, some terrible abuse, and they won't be held to account for it in any meaningful way.
No, they won't. But we could go into a whole discussion about the system,
absolutely,
policing, courts, and so on, but not on this occasion. I mean, I was wondering on the way, I couldn't remember how he first approached us to join our party in Hackney. I don't know if that's come up in the discussions.
At the very beginning of his questioning, he was asked about his initial tasking, and initially he was tasked against the Socialist Workers' Party, which he initially joined, and then within a very short period of time switched to targeting the Socialist Party. This seemed to be quite a common tactic, that they would always pivot. They'd first go into another group, so that when they got to the group they were actually long-term targeting, they had like a history. They could be like, oh, I used to do this, but now I've come to this.
Because I think you've got the right ideas. So, maybe. Yeah. I know exactly where he lived, and it's in the Narrow Way in Hackney, and it's where we do Saturday stalls, selling our paper, giving out our leaflets. The socialists, that is just. The advert in at the end. Okay.
Well, thank you for joining. We'll be doing another video in the break this afternoon. Please join if you can. If you're able to like and share these videos, it makes a huge difference to how far and wide they're seen. Bye for now. See you all in a bit. Cheers for joining.
Bye.